All right, let's dive into this fascinating topic. It's everywhere these days, really. Robotaxis and what they mean, for the rideshare landscape. We're going to focus on, I guess, the biggest name, Waymo. I mean, they're really making huge strides in the world of self-driving cars.
Yeah, I mean, Waymo's been in the news constantly. It feels like, and for good reason. I mean, their expansion is it's remarkable, and it's having a real impact on cities across the country.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what makes this deep dive so interesting to me, I think. We're not just going to unpack the technology itself. We're going to, talk about those ripple effects, especially for rideshare drivers. I mean, think about it. What happens to human drivers when the cars start driving themselves?
Yeah, it's a big question. I mean, we've got a whole stack of articles, some new research papers here,
Yeah.
all basically pointing to a pretty fundamental shift in how we think about transportation.
Right, and some of these stories are, they're coming straight from the front lines. We're going to hear from some actual Uber drivers who are, seeing firsthand how this Waymo expansion is impacting their lives.
Yeah, it's not just theoretical anymore. This is, real people, real livelihoods being affected in real time.
So let's jump in. We've got some reports here saying Waymo's already hit 100,000 rides per week in Phoenix, San Francisco, and Los Angeles combined. That's a serious number. It shows just how dominant they're becoming in this robotaxi market.
And there are no signs of them slowing down. I mean, their expansion into Los Angeles, into Austin, I mean, it shows they're serious about becoming a major player in the whole ride-hailing world. What's interesting to me is what's making them so appealing, not just to investors, but to riders themselves.
Well, I think the big thing is the driverless model, right? It has the potential to really offer lower fares. I mean, when you don't have to pay a driver, you can undercut the traditional services like your Ubers and Lyfts.
Yeah.
And that obviously appeals to anyone who's trying to save a buck.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's another thing that we shouldn't overlook. It's safety, particularly for female passengers. We've seen some reports, some surveys saying some women report feeling safer in a robotaxi, without a human driver. It sort of removes that potential risk of any kind of uncomfortable encounter.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. It shows that this isn't just about convenience or even cost. It's actually impacting social dynamics and how people perceive safety.
Yeah, it's complex, but while some riders are embracing robotaxis, I keep thinking about the drivers. The human drivers whose livelihoods are tied to this industry. We've got some pretty powerful stories here from Uber drivers who are right in the thick of it, who are seeing firsthand how this Waymo growth is affecting them.
Yeah, and that's where the stories of Jason and Brad come in.
Yeah.
Two Uber drivers. Jason's in Phoenix, Brad's in LA, and Jason in Phoenix, where Waymo is. I mean, they have a huge presence there. He's really feeling the pressure. He describes it as he says Waymo's flooding an already competitive market.
Yeah.
Making it even harder to make a living as a driver.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Phoenix has become a testing ground for Waymo. The density of robotaxis there is higher than anywhere else. So Jason's experience it's a pretty stark look at what could become widespread reality for a lot of rideshare drivers.
Right, but it's not the same story everywhere. Brad, driving in LA, he says he's not feeling the same level of impact. Not yet, at least.
And why is that? What's different about the LA market?
Well, it seems Waymo, even with their expansion into LA, they're still facing limitations there. They're restricted to surface streets. They can't pick up from LAX, and that's a huge source of income for a lot of Uber drivers like Brad.
So Brad's kind of shielded, at least for now, but it raises the question, right? I mean, what happens when Waymo overcomes these limitations? Are Brad and other LA drivers going to face the same squeeze that Jason's dealing with in Phoenix?
Exactly, and that uncertainty. And that's a huge part of the anxiety that drivers are feeling right now. It's not even just about the robo-taxi competition. They're dealing with dropping fares, inconsistent tips. The cost of keeping their car running is going up.
Yeah, it's like a perfect storm. All these factors are coming together to really put the pressure on their livelihoods. And there's this expert, Carl Benedict Frey from the Oxford Internet Institute. He's been studying the impact of automation on work. And his prediction is that as autonomous tech gets better and more affordable, it's just going to, intensify this economic pressure on human drivers.
Yeah, his work is it's really relevant here. He makes this comparison to the early days of Uber, how Uber disrupted the taxi industry. And he basically says, if history repeats itself, we could be seeing a very similar shift. Yeah. But this time it's, robo-taxis replacing human-driven rideshares.
Yeah, it's an interesting parallel. It raises these big questions about, about the future of work itself and the need for solutions that actually address the very real possibility of drivers being displaced, being pushed out.
Yeah. So we've got Waymo expanding like crazy, drivers feeling the squeeze, experts predicting, huge economic shifts. But where does that leave the passengers?
Sure.
The people who are actually using these services. What are their experiences? What are their preferences in this whole changing, rideshare world?
And that's a great question. That's what we're going to dig into next. It seems like, passengers are weighing a trade-off, a pretty fundamental trade-off, cost versus comfort. Robo-taxis might be cheaper, but some riders might just prefer that human touch, the familiarity of a traditional rideshare.
It's fascinating. It has huge implications for both robotaxi companies and the traditional services. Mm. So we'll delve deeper into that whole passenger perspective in the next part of our deep dive.
Yeah, stay tuned. We're going to uncover even more intriguing insights into this whole evolving world of robotaxis and what it means for all of us.
Welcome back. Picking up where we left off, we're talking about Waymo, all the changes it's bringing to the rideshare world.
Yeah, a lot to unpack. I mean, we talked about how, drivers like Jason in Phoenix, he's really feeling that competition.
Right. And how Brad in LA, he's got a bit of a shield for now because of those, the limits on where Waymo can operate.
Exactly. But we kind of left this big question hanging. What about the passengers? How are they navigating all this? What do they want when they choose between a robo-taxi and a regular rideshare?
Yeah, the rider's perspective, it's crucial, and our research shows it really boils down to two main things: safety and, well, cost, of course. No, maybe we start with safety because that's a whole can of worms, really, with a lot of different perspectives. Yeah, I mean, you've got some riders who are, I don't know, they're just uneasy about the technology itself. The whole idea of getting into a car and there's no human driver. It's a big leap for some folks. Yeah, they wonder if these systems are really reliable. Especially when things get tricky out there on the roads.
Yeah, I get that. It's a huge mental shift. We're so used to thinking about transportation in a certain way, and now it's like we're handing over control to a machine. That's bound to make some people nervous.
And those nerves aren't totally unfounded, right? I mean, there have been incidents, Waymo cars making sudden moves, having trouble in certain situations, and there was that recall. What was it? Hundreds of Waymo vehicles after that one incident in Phoenix where a car hit a utility pole.
Right. And those incidents, I mean, they're not common, thankfully, but they do show that this technology, it's still being perfected. It's a work in progress. A reminder that these systems, they're complex. As smart as they are, they're not they're not foolproof.
And those incidents, they can chip away at public trust, make it even harder to convince people who are already a little skeptical about getting into a robotaxi.
Absolutely, but here's the flip side. We've also heard from some riders, particularly women, who say they actually feel safer in a robotaxi because there's no human driver. There's no potential for any creepy or even dangerous interactions.
Right. That's a crucial point for some riders. That sense of safety, it outweighs any concerns they might have about the technology itself. It's a really complex mix, of how people perceive things, societal anxieties, how trust is built or broken in this, in this world that's becoming more and more automated.
Yeah, it's fascinating. But okay, let's switch gears for a second. Cost. That's the other big thing driving passenger decisions. We talked about how Waymo, their whole driverless model, it lets them, offer those low fares, often beating out the traditional rideshare services.
And that's a big deal, right? Especially, I mean, ride-hailing costs are They just keep going up.
Yeah.
So if you can, save a few bucks, that's attractive to a lot of people.
Absolutely. But the question is cost the only thing? Is that all it takes? And what we're seeing is it's more complicated than that. Some riders are willing to, to pay a little extra to get that comfort, that familiarity of a traditional rideshare.
Right. They want that human connection.
Yeah.
To be able to chat with the driver, or just knowing there's a person behind the wheel.
Yeah, it's a reminder that transportation's not just about getting from A to B. It's the whole experience, the interactions, the feeling of control, and that's something a lot of passengers still value.
So it's like passengers are weighing all these things: safety, their budget, what they personally prefer, and using all that to decide, robotaxi or regular rideshare.
Right. And that equation, it's going to keep changing too as the technology gets better, as people get more used to it, as the whole industry adapts.
Speaking of the industry, I mean, this isn't just about individual drivers and riders, right? This whole rise of robotaxis, it's forcing the entire rideshare industry to rethink what it is, what it's going to be.
Yeah, big time. We're seeing companies like Lyft. They're exploring these new models, like that hybrid model they're talking about, combining human drivers and autonomous vehicles.
That's an interesting one. It's like they're saying, there's value in both, in the human element and the autonomous tech.
Right. It could be a way to smooth out the transition, to integrate robotaxis more gradually, so you don't have this sudden massive job loss, and it keeps that option open for passengers who want that human interaction.
Makes sense. But even with solutions like that, I mean, there are still some big hurdles, right? Some big challenges facing these robotaxi companies.
Right.
Regulation, I mean, that's a huge one.
Oh, absolutely. Trying to navigate all the different rules and laws in different cities, different states, different countries. I mean, that's a massive undertaking for a company like Waymo.
Yeah, I mean, Brad, in LA, he mentioned how Waymo can only operate on surface streets. They can't go to the airport, to LAX. And those limitations, they're partly because of those regulatory hurdles.
Exactly. Every city, every place, they've got their own set of rules. Getting permits, getting approvals, it can take forever. And it costs a ton of money.
And those regulations, I mean, they're not just red tape.
Yeah.
They often reflect genuine concerns about safety, about data privacy, about how this is all going to impact our existing transportation systems.
Yeah, it's a balancing act. Governments, they want to encourage innovation, right? They want these new technologies to develop, but they also have to they have to think about the public good, about safety and all the societal impacts of these changes.
And beyond the regulation, there's the technology itself, right? I mean, designing a system that can really drive itself, that can handle anything that the real world throws at it. I mean, that's incredibly hard.
Oh yeah. Think about, pedestrians doing unpredictable things, bad weather, even just, navigating a construction zone, all these things that, for us humans, they're not that big a deal, but for these autonomous systems, it's still a huge challenge.
And even if they get the tech to a point where it's super reliable, there's still the human factor, convincing people, getting them to trust these driverless cars.
Right. It's going to take transparency from companies like Waymo. They have to be upfront about, what the technology can do, what it can't do. But more than anything, it's going to take, a proven track record.
Yeah.
Showing people that these robotaxis are safe, that they're reliable.
So yeah, the road to this robotaxi future, it's not going to be smooth. There's going to be bumps, there's going to be detours.
For sure, but there's no denying it. The momentum is there. This technology, it's changing how we think about transportation. And that change, it's only going to get bigger in the years to come.
And as we keep exploring all this, I think it's important to remember the future it's not set. We have a say in this. The choices we make today, they're shaping that future.
Absolutely. We have to be thoughtful, we have to be responsible, we have to work together, because we can use this technology to build something better. A transportation system that's safer, that's more efficient, that's more accessible, that works for everyone.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well,
but as we keep looking ahead at all these potential futures, let's not forget about the human side of all this. How this impacts drivers, passengers, everyone. That has to be front and center in this whole conversation.
Couldn't agree more. And in the final part of our deep dive, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to explore these different futures. What might transportation look like in a world where where autonomous vehicles are everywhere? We'll talk about the good, the bad, and the choices we have to make as we navigate this whole technological revolution.
Buckle up, folks. The future of transportation, it's about to get really interesting. Okay, so we're back, and I feel like we've covered a lot of ground. The rise of Waymo, how it's impacting drivers, passengers. Yeah. But now I kind of want to look ahead. What could transportation look like in a world where these autonomous vehicles, these robotaxis, are just everywhere?
Yeah, the crystal ball time. And I think it's important to remember we're not predicting the future here. More like exploring possibilities, thinking about the choices we make now and how they might lead to different outcomes.
Right. So let's try this. Imagine a future where robotaxis have won. They're the main way people get around in cities all over the world.
Okay, so picture this. You need to go somewhere, you open an app, you request a ride, and boom. A self-driving car shows up, no waiting around, no human driver. It takes you where you need to go, efficiently, quietly. And because everyone's using these things, traffic is way down. Commuting is less of a headache. Those massive parking lots, we don't need them anymore. They're turned into parks, green spaces.
I mean, it sounds pretty utopian, right?
Yeah.
But I guess with any big technological change, there are going to be downsides, trade-offs. What are some of the things that could go wrong in this robotaxi dominated future?
Yeah, I mean, the big one that comes to mind is jobs. What happens to all the drivers? The people who make a living, driving people around. If we don't need them anymore, I mean, that's a huge issue, and it's one we need to be thinking about now. Retraining programs, creating jobs in other fields, maybe even rethinking how we support people who are out of work. Our whole social safety net.
Yeah, it's about making sure that progress, that it benefits everyone.
Yeah.
That it doesn't just leave people behind.
Absolutely. And it's not just about the economic impact. There's the question of access. Will everyone be able to afford these robotaxis? Will they be available everywhere? Or will it create a system where only the wealthy, only people in certain neighborhoods have access to this convenient, this efficient transportation?
It's like we have to make sure that transportation, I mean, it's a basic need, right? It has to be fair. It can't just, make existing inequalities worse. Yeah.
Right. Maybe this future, it needs a whole new way of thinking about public transportation, integrating robotaxis into a system that serves everyone, no matter how much they make, no matter where they live.
So that's one future. Mm-hmm. But what about, I don't know, what about a future where it's not just robotaxis, where human drivers are still part of the mix?
Yeah, a hybrid world. I mean, the shift to full autonomy, it might not happen overnight. It could be more of a gradual thing. And in that world, you'd have robotaxis and human-driven cars all sharing the roads.
And maybe that helps with that job displacement issue. It gives drivers time to adapt, to find new niches.
Yeah, like maybe human drivers focus on certain types of rides, specialized services, things robotaxis aren't good at yet, or maybe they focus on certain areas where people just prefer a human driver.
So more options, more choices for riders.
Exactly, but of course it also creates new challenges. How do you make sure that human drivers and robotaxis can operate safely together? How do you prevent accidents, confusion?
Right, like can cars talk to each other?
Yeah.
Share data so they know what everyone's doing. And people, drivers and passengers, they need to learn how to navigate this new world.
Yeah, it's all about communication, education, making sure everyone understands how this hybrid system works.
Okay, so we've got the robotaxi only future, the hybrid future, but I want to get a little more out there. What about, I don't know, a future where this technology, it goes beyond just individual cars, where the whole transportation system is automated?
Okay, now we're talking. This is where things get really interesting. Imagine cities where the whole system is connected. Traffic lights that talk to cars, optimizing flow. No more gridlock. Public transportation that's seamlessly integrated with with these autonomous vehicles, so you can get anywhere, door to door, quickly, easily.
And think about, I mean, deliveries, trucks, drones, all moving things around without human drivers. It can make everything so much more efficient.
Right. It's a future where transportation is this intelligent network, everything optimized, everything running smoothly, safe, efficient, sustainable.
But a system like that, I mean, it's also a lot of eggs in one basket, right? What happens if something goes wrong? If there's a cyber attack or just a glitch in the system, and who's in charge? Who's responsible when things go haywire?
Yeah, those are big questions, and they're questions we have to figure out before we get to that point. It's like we have this amazing, powerful technology, but we have to use it wisely. We have to think about the risks, put safeguards in place.
It's about being smart about innovation.
Yeah.
Not just racing ahead without thinking about the consequences.
Exactly. So, I mean, looking at all these potential futures, it's clear that the future of transportation, it's messy, it's complex, it's not just about technology. It's about economics, it's about our values, it's about the choices we make as a society.
And the rise of robotaxis, it's one piece of that puzzle. And I think what we've learned here is that we need to keep talking about this, keep asking the hard questions, keep looking for solutions that work for everyone.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, transportation, it's not just about getting from one place to another. It's about connecting with people, exploring, living our lives, and we need a transportation system that helps us do all that.
Well said. Well, I think that about wraps it up for our deep dive into the world of robotaxis. I hope this has given everyone listening, some food for thought, some new perspectives on this whole thing that's changing so rapidly.
Yeah, thanks for joining us on this journey, and keep those wheels turning, folks, both literally and figuratively.
The future of transportation, it's in our hands. Let's make it a good one.
Right.
Almost there. Don't forget your phone, keys or holiday cheer. You're here. Please. Vehicle approaching. You're here. Please make sure it's clear before exiting.